Alright, quick-ish video about the Cougar's engine out here at the junkyard. Having a good time. I got this open, and I figure I'll put it up, because whenever I was doing research about some upgrades and whatnot to this thing, I learned some stuff. So, this right here is a 5.0, but as you can see, it's got an EFI on it. What that means is instead of having a carburetor on the top, we have ourselves an electronic fuel injection system. So versus having a system that kind of works like a toilet bowl that pulls fuel through the toilet bowl with a vacuum, this right here has a computer that tells it when to spray fuel into the actual electronic system. Now, the Cougar is actually a Mustang chassis, more or less. So a lot of things for the Mustangs from this time period also work on the old Cougar here. Now, all of that being said, after doing some research about this particular 5.0, I made some discoveries. This right here was, well, pretty much the only year that Ford was putting this style of engine inside of this style of car. We got an old body style for the Cougar here. However, we got the upgrades to the new style of engine with some exception. This right here is actually a transition engine going from the old carbureted systems to the new HO Ford 5.0 systems that are found in Fox bodies and the like. So more or less, the reason why this is a hybrid is because we have the old engine, which only made about 150 horsepower, but we have the new EFI electronic stuff on the top of it, which more or less, well, it upgraded the system from carbureted to EFI system, so I get much better gas mileage in this thing, and overall it just runs as a much healthier engine. So before this body style, well, not body style, before this engine style, these 302s were carbureted, and they made about 150 horsepower. 1986, Ford threw these EFI systems onto their 302, but they kept the old style of engine. 1987, they ended up upgrading these systems to the HO or high output systems, and they ended up making about 250 horsepower with this new EFI system. Now, a good, easy way to tell what kind of engine you have inside of your Ford, if we're looking at the 302, is look at the firing order of your system. If we look for our number one on our distributor cap, which is right here, and then we go counterclockwise on our distributor cap to the next one, we can see that this is piston number 5 down there. So that is the original firing order for the 302. So we have an original engine, or original style 302 engine inside of this thing, despite the fact it has an EFI system. If you have one of those high output engines, they change the firing order to where this right here would go down to number 3, which is actually a 351 firing order. So they changed up the firing order a bit. That's a real easy way to be able to tell. Now, there are some other upgrades to this engine besides just the EFI system. The lifters on these things were actually upgraded to roller lifters, just like the later versions of the engine. Now, one of the big downsides about this engine and this setup is if I were to, say, throw a HO engine in this, since it's got the EFI system and whatnot, you would think that it would just hook right up. But the high output 302 system, even though it's basically identical to this, there's some differences with the EFI systems and the PCM and the way that all of the other stuff works. So I would have to swap out a bunch of that other stuff for this. So there's definitely some pros and cons with this system. Well, it's just an older style of engine, the older style of 302 that has a lot of the newer features, but I can't use the new engine. It's a transition period right in the middle between the two. We got roller system lifters and we got EFI system, but we still have the original firing order and we still have the original horsepower inside of this thing. So it gets a specific amount of fuel and a specific amount of air and a specific amount of all sorts of different stuff that we got going on with this. So fixing things and swapping out things for this particular engine. Some stuff works, some stuff doesn't. There's been one of the big headaches that I've been dealing with whenever it comes to this transition engine with the Ford 302, just right in between. Now, some of the pros are getting an old style of car that has all of the new style of EFI technology, which is great because my fuel economy in this thing is like 25 to 27 miles to the gallon, which is wonderful considering that if I had a carbureted system on this, it would be more like 12 to 15. So that is a major, major improvement. It's just difficult to work on because you got to make sure that the parts you're getting are either going to be for the old style 302 depending on what you need, or the new HO style 302 depending on what you need. But then the new HO style of 302 has to be compatible with this particular engine, which is the old style of 302 that has the new style EFI systems and upgrades on it, minus the horsepower and all of the other stuff. It's complicated. It gets a little tedious sometimes, but after messing with it for years and years and years, I've learned a lot about it. So hopefully you guys learned a little something about the Mercury Cougar 302s. No, none of the engines from this particular year and this particular body style were from the factory HO engines. Now, if I did want to take this engine out, throwing a high output engine from like a Cobra or something, and then redo the EFI and fuel system inside of it to where it could run that, that's absolutely possible. Should mount right in. Or if I wanted to just take this out and throw a 351 in there, that would also work. So hopefully you guys learned something. Appreciate you sticking around. I had this up, I was looking at it, phone in my hand, figured I may as well make a video and maybe teach somebody something. This looks fine. Is that why my windshield wipers ain't working no more? The windshield wiper fluid, I think that's our sprayer there. That's okay. That's what the good old-fashioned water bottle's for. And this over here looks wet. That's perfect. That'll be okay. What about in here? Let's just give this a quick look. That's moisture. We're gonna close that back up and pretend we don't have a head gasket leak. Perfect. All right, I'll see you guys later.